Hi, this is Adam Ross with Florida Tennis and Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. This is probably one of the most excited I've ever been for a show. Rosie Casals is a legend. She is somehow given her time to us. I am forever eternally grateful. Rosie, thank you, and how are you?
Well, I am fine. I'm so happy to be able to join the show because I missed it yesterday, and so you gave me a second chance, and here I am, and thank you for doing that, and I'm happy to be with you tonight.
Rosie, it's an honor, and you're so funny. Just so the audience knows, I got bumped for Billie Jean King essentially, and Billie Jean King says pressure is a privilege, and it is a privilege to be bumped for Billie Jean King. So
Well,
if you,
I'll let her know that, okay? Because she said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I got to do a podcast with Adam because we ended up having dinner last night and I left them hanging. So anyway,
well, that's incredible. But if you ever do face that conundrum, Rosie, of spending time with Billie Jean King or me, go with Billie Jean King. That's my advice. I don't give advice to Rosie Casals too often, but that's the advice. But so
well, I think that's good.
solid. Okay, so. I thought because Billie Jean King had kind of played a role in this that we'd let her introduce you. So I'm going to turn to the book Trailblazers. Hopefully, our audience can see this. Trailblazers, the unmatched story of women's tennis by Billie Jean King with Cynthia Starr. Now, in that book, she has a nice little passage on uh, Rosie. There's Rosie. Okay. And she says, Rosie Casals, standing tall in talent and tenacity. Rosie Casals was an exciting, gifted athlete and the best player of her era not to win a major singles title. She ranked in the top 10 in the world from 1966 to 1977 and reached a career high of number three in 1970. Only 5 foot 2.5 inches tall, Rosie was quick, acrobatic, and creative in her shot selection. Her cat-like reflexes at the net made her a sensational doubles player. She won 12 Grand Slam doubles titles, nine in women's, seven of them with me, Billie Jean King, and three in mixed. In Federation Cup play, Rosie had an outstanding 26-1 record in doubles. She and I won 11 of our Federation Cup doubles matches. Rosie was born in San Francisco to parents who had immigrated from El Salvador, but she was raised by her great uncle and great aunt, Manuel and Maria Casal. She learned to play tennis on the public courts of Golden Gate Park. Everything came easy to me, Rosie said. I was a good athlete. I moved quickly. Tennis was not work because I had a lot of talent. So I have to ask you to start your thoughts on Billie Jean King's introduction.
Well, boy, that is some commentary there, and hard to follow. But of course, I mean, she was like a mentor. She was a mentor to me. I mean, she was 5 years older. She'd won Wimbledon twice, the doubles, and she'd been an international player when I met her. So, of course, her experience and my lucky moment that I made an impression on her when I was about 13 or 14. I played her at the Berkeley Tennis Club for the Pacific Coast. It was one of the big tournaments. Um, and I played her in doubles with my partner, Gloria Segerquist from the Bay Area, and we were ranked number one. So we got a wild card into the Barry McKay event, and, we pushed them to a 7-5, 7-6. She played with Carol Codwell. And, after the match, she looked at me and she said, you could be good. And of course, that stayed in my mind for a long while. And I happened to have played her once again uh, in singles about a year and a half later for the state championship. And, um, you know, I was really impressed, and I'm glad that we impressed one another because from that point on, we remained, friends and touch base because little did I know that about a year and a half years later, she would be asking me to be her doubles partner after having won Wimbledon twice with Karen Sussman.
So I think that took us to about
Oh,
1965.
what happened here?
Um,
Sorry.
no, you're fine. And so what was it like getting that inquiry or call from Billie Jean King in 1965 saying, "Hey, would you be my doubles partner?"
Well, she said, look, Karen is married now, wants to start a family. So I'm going to be looking for a partner, and I'd like to play with you. So, I mean, wasn't I a lucky person to have been asked by her? Because I don't know. I think I was pretty shy. I don't think I would have asked her to play. So, yeah, I was very fortunate, and I couldn't wait to get out of school and graduate because that was 1966. That I would have my first trip abroad, to England, and I was very excited because it's the first time I've been anywhere, and especially to Wimbledon, which um, I didn't realize to what extent I would fall in love with it, but I did from the very beginning of 1966 when I set eyes on it. So, yeah, it was an exciting year for me.
Well, in researching your life, if it was optioned as a movie, no one would believe it. And so I'm going to break that down a little bit. In 1966, going to Wimbledon, to say you're from humble beginnings is an understatement. And you've talked about going to these clubs that were exclusive country clubs, being Latina, being not wealthy, and tennis was not a diverse sport. And you talked about how kids were, signing their names for food and you're brown bagging it in the car. And if I understood you correctly, that lit a fire in your belly, a ferociousness, not necessarily an anger, but something that drove you to be the legendary competitor and player you became. Is that correct?
Well, of course, because, once I got outside of my neighborhood, I realized there was something different, something special. And certainly tennis was special to me. And I was so fortunate because I was brought up by my great aunt and uncle. And, his game was soccer, but because he had a broken ankle, he couldn't play and he was older and everything. So he decided to play tennis. And lucky me, kept on pestering him to take me to Golden Gate Park where he would play with his cronies on the weekend. And so finally he did. And boy, uh, I would take a racket and go to the corner and hit it against the wall a million times, and the ball came back just as often as I hit it. So, it was great practice. And, I never looked back from that point on. It's all I ever wanted to do. I wanted to be a tennis player, and it offered me opportunities that I wouldn't have had, even traveling outside of my little neighborhood, to go out to Golden Gate Park, out in the avenues, and then to tournaments across the bay, down the peninsula to Sacramento, and eventually to LA and the world. Little did I know, you know and I
Sure.
always say, little did I know that we'd go down to the Civic Center, and they had the circus, they had the car show. Well, about, you know 12 years later, it was the Virginia Slims, and little did I know I would be a part of all that.
That's amazing. And I do like to share with my audience just some parts of my collection here, but I will I have to. So we've been talking about Billie Jean
Oh
King.
yeah,
So I'll go to the
I
witty
saw plenty of those in her apartment.
but one of my favorite possessions, okay, I'm just gonna say it, is my Rosie Casals signed racket. I hope everybody can see
Oh,
it.
one of
Uh,
those, yeah.
this is a
That's a Spalding, and even though I started out as a Wilson kid, because that they were the first ones to give me a rackets, and you know and so but eventually, as I would have played probably with that sometime in the 70s and yeah, 70s, because things are, after a while, I played with the T2000, which Jimmy Connors is known for, but
Wow.
Pancho Gonzalez also played with Spalding. He was their big one. And so they decided to put another Latin alongside of him. So,
Well, thank you for telling me the origin of this.
well,
You,
you are a collector, aren't you?
I am, and this is one of my favorite cards is my Hall of Fame
Oh,
sign.
oh my God, you are really, yes, of course.
I
Yeah, they've
am,
done a very nice job of
isn't it?
reviving all of us. Yeah.
So I didn't ever know I'd get this opportunity to ask, but I'm just curious, how does a card like this get signed? Do they ship these to you? Do you go to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Remember?
As a matter of fact, yeah, I've signed many of those. People buy them and then they send them to me, and then I sign them and send them back to them.
Well,
So,
these were pre-signed. This is number 17 of 50
oh,
in the
okay.
Hall
Then you
of
have a
Fame.
collector's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some are pre-signed and some are not. They're still my signature. They're not stamped or anything. But when we go back to the Hall of Fame, they'll pull a bunch of cards out and say, okay, you need to sign 100 of these or 200 of these. So, yeah, no, there's definitely signed by us.
Yeah. Thank you for, I really didn't know
Oh,
how
yeah,
that happened.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
Now, in popular culture, you've been portrayed by actresses in two films that covered the Battle of the Sexes. And of course, the Battle of the Sexes was Billie Jean King versus Bobby Riggs. And this is one of the cards, King versus Riggs, 1973. Billie Jean King defeats Bobby Riggs in the Battle of the Sexes. Um, the reason I'm bringing this up is I am fascinated by that match, that 1973 match. And I'm not sure people understand the significance of that match. But to take it to the next level, I'm actually talking to a person who was a broadcaster for that match, you. I think it was supposed to be Jack Kramer, but I don't think he was simpatico, I'll say that, with the women's game. And I think Billie Jean King said, hey, it's not happening. So what's it like? Can you talk about the significance of the match, the build up to the match? You're broadcasting the match with Howard Cosell, and although I like Howard Cosell, he had a bit of a cringy comment when the match started about how if Billie Jean King didn't wear glasses, she could be a model. It was kind of symbolic of how things were at the time. So, any recollections, any reminiscences about the match and about being a commentator for that match?
Well, that's a lot to, think about. Of course, about the match. Um, Once Margaret lost to him, it made it into something more than a tennis match, a statement of what we were trying to accomplish, with women's rights and women's opportunity to earn a living and make prize money and you know have careers in sports. And so I think that was really what was on the line. And, you have a 55-year-old, however, he was 53 or 55, one of those two, um, challenging probably the best at that point. At that time, she was number one in the world, obviously Billie Jean. And so you're challenging the one who is the best, who's been defending women's rights and fighting, for equality and recognition and all that, in addition to uh, an old fart like Bobby, you know. Hey, we ended up being very good friends, all of us, because I've got to hand it to him, going off track a little bit, by having created a space for himself. I mean, he's a legitimate tennis player. I mean, he won Wimbledon, the Triple Crown, and everything. I think it was 1939. The guy was a legitimate player, real good. And of course, the difference of age, there's a difference. And to reinvent himself, and say, I want a piece of that action because, I never got anything when I was playing, which is true. His money came from different sources and very little money came from tennis at that time. So, for that, he did an incredible job having challenged and having gone down in history. I mean, because this match signified so much for women and women's right and what they were fighting for. And I mean, that was a heavy load. And it was obvious that, unfortunately, Margaret could not carry that load. She probably really misread what this match was going to be all about, and she did not prepare. And that's the difference about Billie Jean. She prepared. She realized that this is not just a match. This is something more than that. So I have to treat it, and I have to do whatever I can and give my best. And she prepared for it. I mean, every part of it. And you had mentioned about Kramer. Yes, up until the very last minute, Rune Arledge didn't want to eliminate Jack Kramer. And, she said, well, if he's going to be broadcasting, I don't want to give him a platform to put down women's tennis. I won't play. And so, whether it was a bluff or not, but I think I tend to believe her. And there was just too much at stake. And so he had to let him go. And of course, I don't think that Gene Scott really made up for the difference of a Jack Kramer. But nonetheless, it was electric. I wish I would have been down stage wise on the floor to be able to watch the match and enjoy it rather than, do my sparring on TV with Howard Cosell. If I said it was a bad shot, he may say it was good, and he would contradict, and I would, tell him, what was happening. I knew about tennis and he knew about boxing or something else, but tennis he did not know. So anyway, it was an experience, no doubt, and he's very chauvinistic. And that was TV. Imagine showing what they were showing for basically women's rights, and you had basically male chauvinists, producer, all the way down the line to commentating, et cetera, et cetera. So that match made a difference and changed a lot of things with women, not just in sports and tennis, but also in the workplace. I mean, so many women came up to Billie Jean, also myself, and said, "Thank you for letting us know that we could have more than what we've had, and that it's okay to want to have a career, as a businesswoman, as a CEO, that it was okay." So I think it said a lot, and the fact that she defeated him. Even though they can make excuses, he can make excuses about his age and what have you. Bottom line, he lost in the winning call. And look, we still talk about that match. I mean, of course, there are just some generations that have come up that don't know about that match, that should know about that match, because so much of what they have now is because of that match.
Well, that's why I'm grateful for you for talking about it, because although it was 1973 and wasn't just a tennis match, it was a cultural phenomenon that changed the planet. So
It
thank
was,
you.
and it was a sign of the times. I mean, look, the 70s was women's lib. A lot of different new things were happening. Tennis was open era. There was prize money. There was, commercialism. So many things were happening, and the players had gotten established with their own association, ATP, WTA. So innovations with products, with rackets, with balls, with clothing. I mean, we had like an explosion of tennis, and tennis at that time was at its highest, kind of what pickleball is doing right now, right? Just setting the world on fire and everybody wanting to play. So that we have to find a way to reinvent that situation now.
Sure, sure. Well, I want to go through some more Rosie Casals facts, if you don't mind. I know you're humble, but I just have to kind of do this if you don't mind. I know you don't want to hear this, but 595 singles victories, 508 doubles wins. You turned pro in 1968. You have prize money of over $1 million, $1,362,222. Total of 685 singles and doubles tournaments your career. You won 112 professional doubles tournaments, the second most in history behind Martina Navratilova. Your last doubles championship, in fact, was in 1988 with the tournament in Oakland, California, where your partner was Navratilova. This all leads me to I want to talk a little bit about your aggressive attacking style. Um, you don't have the prototypical height one would think for a doubles player. You're certainly not Margaret Court or Virginia Wade, or I mean, they're not, you don't have the height. But how did you develop this attacking style to just fly to the net like you did, and those reflex? I mean, the reflexes. It's incredible.
Well, you know, the game in California and what we learned was a serve and volley, and that was the style of play. And we played doubles as well. I mean, in the juniors, you played singles and doubles, and when there was an opportunity to play mixed doubles, you would play. When we practiced with the guys, and we played mixed. So, you develop a style. And of course, we can't do anything about how what our height is. But, you know, what I'm fortunate to say is that I was fast enough to cover the court. And that really did help me get around the net and, get around the court. I think where it was a real disadvantage is if I played somebody like Margaret Court or somebody who was taller, had more reach, could get to a couple more balls. They were harder, obviously, because you had to be so accurate in what you did. And even though the game is slower, uh, when we played and probably more thought, more strategy, different shots that you can hit. Um, it's just a very difficult thing to learn. But yeah, what can I say? The tennis then is was pretty slow when I looked at that Bobby Riggs match when I was watching. I said this looked like a slow motion, but I gotta say our generation did think better.
Well, you touched upon your relationship with Billie Jean, but I want to read you a quote from Hall of Famer Bud Collins, journalist Bud Collins. He said, "Of the two of you, Billie Jean King and Rosie were the ringleaders on court, close friends, doubles partners, frequent final round foes, super saleswomen for the emerging tour. They were perfect role players, feisty but good-humored kids off the public courts who believed women had a destiny in professional sport." Is that something you agree with that Bud Collins said, how we described the both of you?
That I didn't hear that we were what?
That you were women who believed that you believed women had a destiny in professional sport. That you and Billie
Oh,
Jean were people who
yes.
were putting that forward.
Yeah, well, he loved Bud. He was great, always very complimentary. But yeah, it was the times. I think we knew what we had to do. We felt very strongly about declaring ourselves that we wanted to earn a living, that we wanted to have careers, and the way things were going, even after the Open era in 1968 for women, we were still playing with the men. We were still getting less money, quite a bit, something like 8-to-1 ratio. They still got the show courts, and we weren't important. And at that point, at that time, we're talking about probably 69, 70. Billie Jean was number one. It wasn't Stan Smith or Dennis Ralston that was bringing people through the turnstile. So it was difficult times because we realized that we needed to do something. That we needed to regroup, talk to the women, and figure a way in which we could talk to the sponsors and the promoters. And the hard part about them is that they were primarily men. So it was very difficult. You had Billy Talbert was the tennis director at the U.S. Open. And, we'd gone to him to ask for more prize money. And, Billie Jean said, look, if I get the sponsor, can we have, the same money? And she was able to do that with Bristol Myers, Mark Coslow, and he was true to his word, which is very unusual for that to happen. But the U.S. Open was the first to give equal prize money to the women, which is really pretty incredible because they were one of the ones to fight us so much hand in hand, tooth and nail, with Virginia Slims and Gladys Heldman. So I definitely, you know, think they did a great thing by doing that.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Gladys Heldman because it's a good segue for me because I'm not sure people realize that you were inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame two times. Once in 1990, this is kind of rare air. I mean, once in
Yeah.
1996 as a player, and then once in 2021 as part of the original nine. Now, I just wanted to show kind of the original nine from, this is a book called A Dollar and a Dream with a foreword by Billie Jean King. And that's really an iconic photo of the original nine holding up dollar bills. But what many people don't even know about this photo is that one of the original nine is not in this photo because Gladys Heldman is in the photo and not Julie Heldman. Julie Heldman, as I understood it, had not yet arrived at the club, but Gladys was certainly worthy of being in the photo. She was the founder of the WTA, essentially with Billie Jean. You can correct
Well,
me. Anyway.
World Tennis Magazine.
World Tennis Magazine. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
World
yeah,
Tennis
because
Magazine.
yeah, WTA she was not part of WTA. So
I'm so glad that you corrected that.
well,
I meant to say World Tennis.
that is a great book. That's by Don Gabi.
Yeah.
And if you've not read it, anybody, it's a great book. It really gives you the history of the Virginia Slims and the original nine and how they came to be. And it's got all the facts. It's very accurate. I go to it when I have to remember things. But he talked about how the Virginia Slims tour started, the importance of Gladys Heldman and the role she played. She was our negotiator most of the time, and how Virginia Slims came to be was that the women finally got so upset with Jack Kramer and not uh, having him change the structure of the prize money at the Pacific Southwest that a group of women, which ended up being nine and a couple, but nine definite ones, who signed a contract with Gladys Heldman for $1 so that we could be contract pros and play in the first Virginia Slims of Houston in 1970.
That is
So I
very,
am happy
go
to
ahead.
say
I'm sorry. Please.
that I was the winner of that. I think I beat Judy Dalton 3 sets. So it was a nice little thing to have to make history by being the first one to win the first Virginia Slims. So I'm very proud of that one. I like that very much.
Yeah, that's an
And
extraordinary.
as to the original nine, I always say here are 9 women that came together. Now, how do you get 9 women to agree on everything? But we did. We agreed that we were not going to play the Southwest, that we were going to play a separate tournament, and it happened to be in Houston because Gladys and her husband were moving back to Houston, and that was her club. And a group of ladies under the name of Dolores Hornberger uh, were responsible for raising the money, which they did. They raised about $5,000. You know, they put it to their husbands who owned companies and said, "You need to sponsor." And so Gladys also got money from Virginia Slims, and so that's how it started. And these 9 players played in it. And I told you the story about the contract, and that's how we were able to play without getting suspended. But mind you, we did still get suspended and couldn't play Whiteman Cup or Fed Cup, or, at that point, the Grand Slams, perhaps. But, eventually, all of that changed as we started competing in our own tour and managing it and understanding what we had to do in order to make it grow. And, we felt we were entertainers, and we played in a lot of arenas, and we played in a lot of little places as well. So, um, you know, like when I look at tennis now and see how the players are treated, and the money they make, it started because of 9 women. It started because of Billie Jean and Gladys Hellman. We had leadership, and we were very fortunate because that leadership remained, and then it was passed down to the Martinas and the Chris's, and somehow it's gotten a little diluted, but I think the women are still looking pretty good.
The risk you took at the time was in some ways extraordinary because the threats being made against you were pretty much your career will be over. But on the other hand, I've heard you said we weren't being respected, we weren't being paid the way we should be paid. So you're kind of weighing those two things. But it really was kind of an extraordinary leap that you made at the time.
Well, um, the thing, yeah, it was difficult because on one hand we had nothing to lose. Okay, it wasn't like we had tournaments, but we were still able to play, and some didn't mind and felt that as long as they could play was better than nothing. But then you had us who said no, that wasn't good enough, and you keep agreeing to something that is you're being undervalued. Yeah, we took a survey. I'll go back to Forest Hills. We took a survey to see how many spectators and tennis fans would watch women's tennis, and we had like 75 to 80% people said they would watch women, and we felt, in some way that was a great indication because New York's a tough crowd. And so that being said and felt and proved, we knew that we were on the right path to push and force. And, I think we were in combat, we were ready to fight. And for whatever reason, we saw the clear path. And of course, it helped to have somebody like Billie Jean, because she's always been a visionary. She's always, been somebody who has been a good guide, a good, as I said, mentor. And even though some may doubt and some may feel, well, you're only doing it because it's good for you. But in reality, it was good for everybody because we all ended up getting more out of nothing. And we wouldn't have done that or gotten any of that if we would not have taken the chances of being suspended and, being disliked by the other players as well, because we ended up with 2 tours. One was a USTA tour that Chris Evert played in, and Yvonne Goolagong and Martina. And the other one was Billie Jean and Margaret Court and myself and Frankie Durr and those players. So it was a tough, difficult time because we're feuding with one another instead of being together. And so fortunately, the marketing machine of Virginia Slims won out really against the USTA because they knew how to sell, they knew how to market, they knew all of those things and how to promote, and they spend the money. They spent the money selling women's tennis and selling cigarettes, and they did a better job. And that's how we ended up getting the other tour to join us at the end of the year. They couldn't compete.
Well, this is Judy Dalton. I wanted to show you that, and that's who you said you beat.
Uh,
And so I'll say there's Gladys Heldman. Okay.
yeah, there's Gladys. Yeah,
And now I just want to show people the original 9, if you just indulge me. There's Rosie Casals looking
yeah,
ready to attack.
one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's Julie Heldman, the backhand getting ready
Mm.
there.
Is that Julie? Are you sure? Guess she got a hat on?
Yeah, Julie Heldman, number two in the US, took a big jump on the circuit.
Okay. All righty. Well,
Yeah, not that easy to see. I apologize.
okay. Mm,
Um,
mm,
Carrie Melville.
okay. Yeah.
Okay. Nancy Ritchie.
Yeah.
Uh,
And Sereno from Texas.
yeah. And Valerie Ziegenfuss right here.
Sick.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And
Did
just
you get Christy? Christy?
yeah,
Christy Pigeon?
Christy Pigeon. Oh, I did it. Hold on. I did have Christy Pigeon. Hold on. Yeah, sorry. Thank you for. Oops. Who's these? This is Christy Pigeon. This is a signed
Okay.
article which says Danville's Christy Pigeon powered a forehand yesterday en route to a 6-2, 3-6, 6-2 upset win over four-seeded Kerry Melville of Australia in the Pacific Coast Championships
Ooh,
at
good
Brooklyn.
win. That's a good win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
Now,
good.
this is a little fun here for you, Rosie. This is a letter from Gladys Heldman. I like this because it's on World Tennis Stationery.
Ooh,
This goes back
that is
to
good.
May 25th, 1961. All right.
What did she say?
Well, it's kind of a funny thing. It's written to a person that says, "Thank you for your letter of May 20th and for your check in the amount of $7. I have written Gussie Moran and enclosed a self-addressed envelope. Do let me know if you receive her autograph."
Oh, see,
So
that's how they used to do it.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
that's funny. I want to be very clear that so people aren't confused that the original nine, I don't know if anybody confuses, is not Title IX, because Title IX obviously refers to the landmark federal civil rights law, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in federally funded education programs and activities, including schools and universities, which is actually an incredibly important piece of legislation, which even the playing field for women on colleges. Now, I know Billie Jean. Did you have any role in Title IX, Rosie, with Billie Jean?
Well, I know she went to Washington with and I don't know the name of the women, well, some were, yeah, um, what's, oh God, Gloria Steinem and,
Sure.
company and others. But, so she was a little bit more involved than I was in some of that legislation. And I'm sure some of the, direction of that legislation. So, yeah, I think that really made a difference to women, in, tennis to some extent, more so now. We're seeing a lot of college kids coming out of school and doing really well on tour. Way back then, you probably had it the other way around, where, in tennis, they would probably start playing young. But basketball, you know, eh, eh, well, hockey, I don't know where hockey and soccer were, but basketball at least, and all the other team sports, very difficult for women, but at least they had a chance to, go into, and have a career in sports as well as an education. And the education was something, guys had automatic. I mean, they ended up with scholarship. They've had a head start in everything. That's the hard part. That's why women are still behind the curve. I mean, the guys have had head starts and everything. So, yeah, it was very, very important legislation in 1972.
Well, this is, by the way, you want to see that's what Julie Heldman looks like. This is her book Driven. So that gives you a better look at Julie Heldman. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, her book.
yeah. You
Um,
read that one?
I
Oh,
have, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she had a lot to say about her mother.
Yeah,
And,
I'm not gonna,
sometimes she could be definitely very frustrating, but
yeah.
yeah,
This
very
is a
difficult.
positive, fun podcast. We're not going to go into the details of what she said, but if somebody wants to know what
No,
Julie Heldman thought of Gladys Heldman, this would be the book to pick up. But there's not a lot
yeah,
of, I know I don't want to take, it's time is flying here. So I'm going to take you through just kind of a rapid fire kind of approach, if you don't mind, Rosie. In singles, okay,
okay.
you get to the finals of the US Open in 1970 and 1971. Okay, hopefully I have this correct. What are your remembrances of those finals? If anything stands out to you.
I was still young, and of course, I felt, I felt I could win. I think Margaret was one, Billie Jean was the other one, and I felt I had a chance. I felt good. I had played well all the way up until that point.
Mhm.
So, of course, one is always disappointed when you don't end up with that trophy because, you felt that you've been playing well. And, I wish I would have won at least one singles Grand Slam, and I think I would have been quite happy. Um, not that I'm totally, sad that I didn't, but it would have been nice. And it just never happened. And it's one of those things that, you hear about where they would say that she was one of the best players who hadn't won a Grand Slam. So there is the rub to some extent, but at least I won some of my doubles and I was quite, happy with that. So we move on. What can we do?
Who for you were the toughest one, two, or three women to play? Who gave you the most trouble?
Well, certainly during my time would be Margaret. I mean, because she was so hard to pass. She could steamroll you when she was playing well. She was difficult for me, basically because of her long arms, long legs. She moved well, and she was tough to beat when she was on. She was on, and um, the other one would be Billie Jean. I mean, she was always a difficult opponent. I mean, she psychologically in every which way that she could find ways in which to distract you because of her nature, how she was. I mean, she would get angry and she could look as if she's quitting. And about 5 minutes later, she's not angry anymore. And she's decided that she's going to beat your butt. So she decides that she's going to play well. And then you are caught maybe a little unawares because, this is going, like a wave up and down that it's hard to maintain a balance. And that's the hard part about beating her. In addition to, if she plays well, then that adds to everything because when she decides she wants to play, and she could be deadly. And, she happened to play better than I did when she beat me. So another one that I never liked to play. And with Virginia Wade, we had our good matches, and I think she beat me more times than I beat her. But she was a good player for me to play. I felt good about playing her. As I got older, obviously, and Chris Everett came along, that changed everything because oh my God. So she hit a million balls. She didn't mind hitting a million balls. And by then you had already hit a million balls in your career plus, but she was deadly with her ground strokes. She really was. Her mental ability also was something to deal with. Those two combinations made it very, very difficult to play with her. She reminded me the other day that she beat me 20 times and I only beat her once.
Huh, that's a fun conversation. Okay. Does that
Yeah.
come up over a latte? By the way, I like that. I like that. Well,
She,
talk about your doubles prowess. I mean, you win Wimbledon title 67, 68, 1970, 71, 73. You win the US Open. I can get tired talking about this, and I'm not even playing. 67, 71, 74, and 82. You win the tour finals in 71, 73, 74. So I'm just going to ask you. Best partners, obviously Billie Jean King. Tell me about playing doubles with her, and I know you had other partners. Any standout matches and the toughest team to play against. And finally,
well,
1982 is kind of
whoa,
the
that's a
outlier.
lot of crap.
That's a lot of questions. Yeah, I'll break it down.
Yeah, I got to remember what you
All
said.
right, so
That's why I
let's
keep
start here.
forgetting.
Let's start
But
here.
well, playing with Billie Jean, of course, it was special. I think we had good chemistry. I think we had, good feel for one another, not just, mentally, but we knew our games very well, and we knew how to get ourselves going. I mean, when she was down, I'd be up. I'd help her up. I'd be the stabilizer. When it was the other way around, she'd be the stabilizer till we got to an even keel where we were both playing well. And, I always believe what she said. I mean, we could be down 5 left, 40 left. She said, we're going to win this. I believe her. So we did.
Love that.
And so, it's just the combination. I think we played well. We were very instinctive, and our tough matches. I mean, Margaret and Leslie Turner or Bowery, Judy Dalton and Margaret Court were tough. There were a lot of good doubles players, but I would say Margaret plus anybody, Judy plus anybody. Betty Stowe was also a very good doubles player. And as we moved on, of course, Martina, she was, of our generation, but a better one. But we had some very tough matches with Ann Jones and Frankie Durr. Um, you know, so what was great is that I think, bottom line, I enjoyed winning with her more than anybody else.
Good
And
stuff.
and we did win more than together than with anybody else. So it was probably because we started young. I was young, and so it was a great relationship, friendship, and tennis wise. I didn't always agree with her, and of course we would have our differences,
I hope so.
without a doubt. I mean, it's just that's what happens. And sometimes, you find ways in which to find a way, especially when you're playing. And we did a good job of that. We would always come back to, connecting. And yeah, that's what makes a good partnership, just like Shriver and Martina. I mean, Shriver was very temperamental. She was up and down, and Martina was more of an even keel, but together they were deadly. They dominated everything. Won, 20 Grand Slams, and was almost won the major Grand Slam, the real Grand Slam by winning, or did that twice. So they had a wonderful career.
In the U.S. Open win in 1982, most of the wins were the 60s and the 70s. Remember 1982?
Yeah, with Wendy Turnbull. Who do you end up playing? Ann Smith
Well,
or who?
I have to. I'm embarrassed to say as I'm.
That's okay. Don't be embarrassed because I can't remember. Regardless, I know it was a very good match and a long one. I think it was a 3-set match. So that was a great win for me at that point in my career. I enjoyed playing with Wendy, which I nicknamed her Rabbit, or that was her nickname because she
Sure,
was
sure.
very, very fast. So we made a good combination. She was very consistent, and we still remained friends and talked to one another. And it was a good way to sort of end your career, and
Sure.
that was very meaningful. I enjoyed it for sure.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask about mixed doubles because you played with Ilie Năstase, right?
Yeah,
And
I just saw his documentary. His documentary
oh,
is great.
I will have to check it out.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you've got to see it. It's wonderful, wonderful.
I ask you about this because I'm picturing how did this come about and what was it like playing with the fiery Ilie Năstase in mixed doubles? How does that happen?
Well, let me tell you, it wasn't easy. It was not easy
I
because you
think
know
that's
how
the answer.
temperamental. He's Romanian, as that gypsy blood. He was very temperamental, up and down. He hated when the girl would win the point off him. He'd want to kill her. He'd really want to kill her.
Oh,
And so I had to keep him just on an even keel. Sometimes I could, most of the times I could. So, but we played really well together. I mean, we won 2 Wimbledons. That's not too shabby. And, it was sometimes it was not fun to play with him, but most of the times we had a good time. He was a good person. He was a good guy.
awesome. I show you one Wimbledon with him in 70 and 72 and the US Open in 75. Does that sound right?
Mm, yeah, sounds good to me.
So just running through your accomplishments in the Fed Cup, now the Billie Jean King Cup, you won it in 1970, 1976, 1977, 1978, 1979, 1980, and 1981. Whiteman Cup, 1967, 1976, 1977, 1979, 1980, 1981, 1982. Again, exhausting to go through your, but what's the significance? This is my point of playing for the USA for you, because you're obviously kicking butt on behalf of
Well,
the USA.
I mean, we sort of grew up with the tradition of playing Fed Cup and Whiteman Cup. it meant a lot to us to represent our country and to be the best in tennis. It was an honor to play. It wasn't something that you would say, it doesn't fit in with my schedule, so I'm not going to play. So we were brought up that it was the right thing to do to represent your country when you were asked to represent your country. So we enjoyed it wholeheartedly. I mean, Billie Jean and I loved playing Fed Cup, loved playing Whiteman Cup in Great Britain, and them coming to us. But we loved to play in Great Britain, and of course we loved to beat them in Great Britain. And we did that many times. Of course, I think they won the last one. I don't know what year. It could have been 1979. It could have been one of those years, but unfortunately now we don't have Whiteman Cup. We celebrated the 100th anniversary, not last year. Is it? Yeah, last year, possibly, or the year before. So 100 years of Whiteman Cup, and I happen to have met Hazel Hotchkiss Whiteman
Wow.
in Boston. Yeah, she was something to reckon with.
That's something. And a large part of your career also was world team tennis. And this is a book. I'm going to call it Busting Walls. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. There's other ways to look at that, but
Oh, busting balls. Whew. Yeah, I
Busting
don't
Walls.
know.
But this is
I
Stephen.
love team tennis. It was great. I played for the Detroit Loves. That was my. What else you have in there? Let's see. Detroit Loves.
This is you with the Los Angeles Strings.
I played for the LA Strings 2 years after that,
Yeah.
and yeah, Jerry Buss and the Forum. Yeah, it was a great place to play. It was fun to play. I love just about. I think every player that played team tennis loved it in the 70s. I mean, we were sorry when if the French came around or Wimbledon because we'd have to stop for 2 weeks, and we really enjoyed playing it. And um, I got to say, I'm sorry that it can no longer, be the same and what it was in the 70s. But we had every top player, female and male player in the world, period.
You
Very
were
impressed.
you were a player, you were a coach. It was your career there, I think was 1975 to 1988. The blurb on the back says by 1974, Billie Jean King and a group of investors made up of fans, promoters, and at least one used car salesman crashed the country clubs and well-manicured courts with the creation of World Team Tennis and eliminated proper etiquette and tennis forever. And you've touched on World Team Tennis, but I would be remiss if I didn't also mention World Team Tennis was important. I interviewed Leslie Visser. That's when she broke the glass ceiling of the credentials used to say no women in the locker room, but the Boston Lobsters, that was the first time she was allowed in a locker room access. So World Team Tennis was important for that as well. Now, I have to mention, you wore dresses designed by Hall of Famer Ted Tinling. I spoke to Butch Buchholz recently. Ted Tinling was also the director of protocol at the first Miami Open back in 1985. But your remembrances of Ted Tinling and the dresses, because I think they did have an importance in the women's tennis movement, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Virginia Slims brought him on board in 1972 to dress the players. And he has been a legend for a very long time, having dressed Suzanne Lang, Betsy Moran, all the players of yesteryear, as well as today's, and well, not today's, but our generation. So we were, really, really happy to hear that he was joining us and that we would be getting Ted Tingling uh, tennis dresses. So Virginia Slims again took care to make sure that we looked good and that we were fashion conscious because we were entertainers and that's how we were marketed in addition to tennis players. And so it was a great time. Gladys Heldman was involved with that as well. And so I have to say that we all looked great. He would put sequins and rhinestones on mine dress, and Billie Jean was Madam Superstar, and so he would give her probably a little bit bigger rhinestones than I got. But um, I, I must say that I think I had probably some of the greatest dresses. And one in particular sits at the International Tennis Hall of Fame because it got kicked off the center court. So it has its own history.
Right, it got kicked off the center court of Wimbledon because of their
Yeah,
traditional.
oh, because it said VS, but VS stands for Virginia Slims. But and it was predominantly white, but the VS was in squiggly purple. So you'll see the iconic dress. I'm sure you'll find it. But and from that time, they ended up having a dress code, and Captain Gibson, who was the referee at Wimbledon, he established a committee to check out the women and make sure they were dressed properly. It was crazy, and of course, at one point, Ted Tingling had been banned from Wimbledon because of Gussie Moran's pants. So here I come in 1972. He finally gets to go to Wimbledon, but then he's called for making this dress, and but fortunately he was not banned, nor I.
Well, we're getting towards the very end of the interview, so I want to talk about your, I would never call it your post-tennis career because you're probably involved in tennis even more now than when you were playing. That's my, that's how I look at you, Rosie. You're very involved, but you have a you're paying it forward through the Love and Love Tennis Foundation. Recently had the Anna Lee Thurston Award reception dinner, honored individuals, including Tracy Austin. Can you talk a little bit about, in the Rosie Cup, can you talk a little bit about your charitable endeavors and raising funds and what your goals are?
Well, I established the Love and Love Tennis Foundation in 2015 with my friend Tori Fritz, who used to play on the tour in the 70s. And she lived here before I did. I moved from the Bay Area, and I've been here now 25 years. Unbelievable. And she always had these kids, and she would say, "Hey, Rosie, come on down and take a look at this kid. What can you do to help?" And all of a sudden, I ended up inheriting all her kids. So then I told her, I said, we should do something for kids here in the desert. So why don't we establish, the foundation so we could run free clinics throughout, provide grants to kids that, could be good. We have to be able to go around and spread the love of tennis because bottom line, it's been everything to me. It's given me a life. It's given me a care and love for the game that I still have. And, we still get out there and have a great laugh. When Billie Jean comes to town, we go out there with her, with Alana Kloss, who used to be our ball girl way back when. And we have a great time laughing and, say, oh, can't get to that ball anymore. So you have to improvise. You have to do all these funny things, but, we still love the game and love to get out there and enjoy and like you said, have fun.
How do people donate and get involved with the Love and Love Foundation? Is there a phone number
Well,
you can
I'm
give?
going to send you that, but they can go online to the Love Tennis Foundation. Just go online and the website will show up. Uh, I may be in transition, but I think it's up. So, and anything that you can do, it helps kids programs. I work with the high schools. I work with the Boys and Girls Club. So, we try and keep active, and that's the way we stay young at heart. I love tennis. I watch a lot of tennis. If it wasn't for the tennis channel, I tell you, I would know what's going on. Um, you know, I'm going to Wimbledon. I always look forward to going to Wimbledon, and it's so nice to be there. 1966 was special, but it's always special. I've never lost the love of the place. It's the cathedral of tennis, as far as I'm concerned.
And you're always at the Hall of Fame celebrating the
Oh
new.
yeah,
That's where I've
that's
seen
the good
you.
time. Yeah, if you haven't been to the Hall of Fame, everybody, fans, you got to hit it. Newport, Rhode Island. It's the most incredible place, small but very impactful. And I think that the renovating it should be open now, but it truly is something to experience.
Well, you did answer one of my questions about whether you still play. Obviously, you still get at it, but I will now ask you about, and I will show you our current cover, Maddie Keys, Florida Tennis, the rise of Madison Keys. So I want to know a little bit about what it's like, what your thoughts are in a player like Maddie Keys finally getting that title, and also just your thoughts on the state of tennis today, the state of women's tennis, state of American tennis, and anything you want to talk about as it relates to the current tennis game. Thank you.
Well, Madison Keys. Okay, Madison, congratulations, because it really did take a lot to win the Australian. So I say to people, here's somebody who was very, I think, difficult when she ended up being somebody who could win, who could be the next number one, who could, all this pressure and being young and really not having a lot of experience. But it's weighty when people put a lot of pressure on you. But I think the fact that she found her husband, they got married, they have a different life. The focus, she does better under the radar. The focus hasn't been on her, and I think he's helped her. I think he's taught her how to think better, how to play better, that it's okay to make those mistakes. But I think the consistency level has improved. And if Madison can do it, um, players that have played like her, high risk, need to pay attention that they can also control and learn how to have a happy medium where you're not going to miss more than you make. So she's gotten to even keel. She is more relaxed and not as nervous as she used to be. So I think it was really nice to see her win. I was very happy to see her conquer.
Rosie, I can't thank you enough for your time, your analysis, your thoughtfulness for being here. I want to wish you all the best in the future, all the best for your Love and Love Foundation, and just all the best. It has been an absolute pleasure for Florida Tennis on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network to spend time with you. Thank you, and have a great night. I hope you enjoy your dinner. Take care.
Well, I know I'm going to enjoy my dinner, and I want to thank you for having me. It's always nice to sort of reminisce and, talk about the old times. That's what happens when you get older. You talk about the old times, but we know there are certainly new times, and the new times may have had something to do with the old times. But anyway, I enjoyed it. Thank you again for having me. And again, sorry about last night. But we had to have dinner with Billie Jean and Alana, and that's just the way it goes. When they come to town, we do as they want to.
Rosie, you're the best. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Take
All
care.
right, you too. Bye bye. Thank you.